Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about the live-action Legend of Zelda movie that was announced not so long ago. But what we're talking about today specifically is how this Zelda movie is headed in the best possible direction, and we have a pretty good understanding of this now based off a recent interview with Wes Ball, the chosen director of the movie and Entertainment Weekly. What he had to say about what he wants to do with the Zelda movie has me very excited, and I think most Zelda fans should also be very, very excited about this one. Now before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So let's first go over what Wes Ball had to say about this upcoming movie. Ball describes his vision as this awesome fantasy adventure movie that isn't like Lord of the Rings. It's its own thing. I've always said I would love to see a live-action Miyazaki. That wonder and whimsy that he brings to things, I would love to see something like that. It's going to be awesome, Ball promises. My whole life has led up to this moment. I grew up on Zelda, and it is the most important property, I think. That's untapped IP, if you will. So we very much are working hard to do something. We're not just trying to do it because we can, we want to make something really special. We are working on the script, and whether it's the next one or not, it's hard to say exactly, he explains. But certainly the plan is, after Apes is done, to have a little bit of rest for a moment, and then dive into Zelda and hopefully give fans what they're hoping for, and also invite new people in. I think Nintendo's desires to introduce people to this world that's been around for 40 years now. So really there's a lot to take away here. Going in reverse order, Ball explains that the intent is that once he's done with the Planet of the Apes movies, he will start working on the Zelda movies, so we're really not that far off for them really diving into things here. Of course, I still expect it'll be a few years before we get to see the actual movie. But when Ball talks about that they're not just trying to do this because they can, but because they believe they can make something really special, that shows direction, that shows that this isn't just meant as a cash grab. They have something in mind here that could be really beautiful and representative of what Zelda is, and they think it's going to be a real hit, so they're going for it. And I think that's really important, and I think this actually ties back to what we've argued beforehand, how because they're heading in this live-action direction, they're going all out here. I think if they went for something more animated, that would be the safe choice. By going in this direction of live action, you will be drawing comparisons to Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, The Witcher, all very high quality productions that are amazing, that deal with the whole medieval fantasy theme. And I've even talked about this is kind of the expectation they're creating by going in the live action direction. Now when I say that, I don't mean that I think this is literally going to be a carbon copy of the Lord of the Rings movies, but that kind of audience, that's the kind of audience that may be attracted to the Zelda movie. I've actually talked about how maybe a better comparison might be the Hobbit trilogy, because the Hobbit trilogy is a little bit more fanciful, a little bit more kid-friendly, still with some serious undertones, but there's still humor mixed in, and it's not as realistic. But it's still live action with a lot of CGI to really make it look like a beautiful, interesting world. But this discussion about live action has actually split the Zelda fanbase. Some of the Zelda fanbase is very excited, others are worried because they feel in general live action adaptations don't turn out so well, and then others because they would have just preferred to get an animated style movie. But perhaps the biggest takeaway from this interview with Wes Ball is how he talks about how he wants this to be a live action Miyazaki, how he wants that wonder and whimsy. And this is extremely exciting when I think you really think about it and break it down. So for those that don't know, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the best-selling Zelda game of all time, was inspired by Princess Mononoke, which if you didn't know is a Studio Ghibli film, and the Studio Ghibli films are directed by Hayao Miyazaki. So when Wes Ball is talking about a Miyazaki film, he is talking about a Studio Ghibli style film. And so when Wes Ball talks about this, I believe he has an understanding of what this means. He wants to capture the essence of what Zelda is. Wes Ball is a huge Zelda fan. Apparently, back in January 29th of 2010, he said this on Twitter. "Since I could never even hope to have the chance to direct it, the next big mocap Avatar-like movie should be The Legend of Zelda." What's funny is that nearly 14 years later, the world knows that he's now working on the Zelda movie. He's wanted this for a long time, so he has the desire. He seems to be a strong, devout Zelda fan that understands what the series is about. When he talks about that wonder and whimsy, that's a lot of what Breath of the Wild had. That's a lot of what a lot of Zelda games have. That's kind of part of the essence that helps to set them apart from your other typical fantasy medieval games. And it's also partially why I've made the comparisons to The Hobbit, because while I would love for there to be this very epic fantasy medieval style similar to Lord of the Rings, there needs to be that wonder and whimsy that we see in the Studio Ghibli films. If you haven't seen Princess Mononoke, basically that's kind of like a Breath of the Wild movie. Just watch it. When you watch it, if you've played Breath of the Wild, you'll be like, whoa, yep, there's so much similarities here. There's so many comparisons. And so by Wes Ball making this comparison, by him saying he wants to do this, I think this shows he has an understanding of what the Zelda fanbase wants and what would be the best way to make a Zelda movie. But what's interesting here is that he's making the comparisons to Studio Ghibli style movies, the animated style, which is what a lot of Zelda fans want, and it's why a lot of Zelda fans are upset about this live action announcement. But here he's saying he wants to do that, but in live action. So the goal here is to go live action, go all out here, forcing itself to be compared to things like Lord of the Rings, but at the same time, be its own thing. Bring in that wonder and whimsy that's reminiscent of the Studio Ghibli films, which is what a lot of Zelda fans want in the movie. They want something to feel like Zelda, and that appears to be the goal here. And I think what's going to end up happening is that if they get this right, we're going to be looking at something that has never really been done before. This is going to feel like its own unique thing. This is going to feel like Zelda, but as a movie. And we could be looking at something that's going to completely blow our minds here. I've made this point before. I have really no concern about the quality of this movie, because if the quality was in question, Nintendo wouldn't be doing it. There's a reason we haven't gotten Nintendo movies in the past. They're extremely careful about their IP, and now Nintendo has come up with a framework for how to get their movies done. And that's with them being heavily involved. They were heavily involved with the Mario Bros. Movie. Nintendo and Miyamoto worked deeply alongside the production staff to get this movie done. And the Mario Bros. Movie didn't come to incredible critical acclaim, but that was never the goal. And I know that's why a lot of people will bring up, the Mario Bros. Movie had bad reviews. They didn't have bad fan reviews. It had fantastic fan reviews. It became the second best-selling animated movie of all time. That movie is fun. That movie is enjoyable. They accomplished what they set out to do for that movie. So point is, they didn't make any mistakes. The Mario movie is exactly as intended by Nintendo. And I believe the Zelda movie will also be exactly as they intend as well. They're going to create something magical here, and it will happen. It may take a few years. They may spend extra time polishing it up, reshooting scenes, doing everything they can to make sure it's right. But it will come out right, and it will be something magical that may have the wonder and whimsy from the Studio Ghibli films. Something that feels like Zelda, but in live action, which could end up being one of the greatest things ever. As a Zelda fan, I am just so excited for this. But what do you make of this recent news? Are you also excited? Are your concerns perhaps a little bit alleviated? Or are you still worried about the quality of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.